Now we are starting this particular session on wills, estate planning, and the effective ways of estate planning. We will be concentrating on various aspects. And at this stage, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Rohit Jain, my colleague and partner, who is a direct tax expert. And considering the advanced questions which I have received, I requested Mr. Rohit Jain to join this particular Zoom meeting so that we all can benefit from his expertise. I welcome Mr. Rohit Jain. Rohit ji, as and where you deem fit, please join us, and you please let us try to give answers to the queries raised by the audience here, the attendees here.
Right, right.
So thank you, Rohit ji, for being here. Now, what is and how an estate planning takes place? How inheritance takes place? There are three ways. The first is by way of will. The second is intestate succession, where there is no will. And the third is by formation of a trust. So these are the three ways through which we can think of inheritance planning. Now, in this entire game of inheritance planning, the most important thing is to have a will. The second most important thing is to plan through the mode of trusts by creating private trusts. And third, of course, we may not like to take any action. We leave the things as it is and let the things go in the way law permits. That is intestate succession. So when we have a will, it is called testamentary succession, and we don't have a will, it is called intestate succession. Here the first question is, when should I make my will? Now the basic philosophy of life is na kal ka pata na pal ka pata. None of us know that what is the lifespan which we enjoy, which we are going to have. We may be having a lot of properties, may be having limited number of properties. That may include immovable properties and movable properties. Immovable properties, we all understand, may include our houses, flats, land, building, business premises, factories. And movable properties may include jewelry, cash, policies, shares, debentures, securities, household items. Now, the right time to make a will is now. You should start thinking of making the will now. There is no optimal time for making a will. Sooner the better. This is my personal as well as legal advice. Sooner it is better. Sooner you write, it is better. Because ultimately you have to write will, and you are advised to write a will to avoid any future disputes among your legal heirs. That is one thing. Avoidance of disputes is one thing. But beyond that, there are other aspects of will writing also. You may not like to give property to a particular legal heir, or you may like to make arrangements for someone special in your life. That someone may be a friend who has served you, an employee, or a child who has given you all attention that you deserve. So by will, you can definitely look at all these things and these aspects for making provisions as per your wishes and to justify your wishes. That is one aspect. You can also avoid family quarrel, family disharmony by making and executing a will. You can also avoid maybe some fraudulent family members whom you may not be liking, or the ways of that person may not be liked by you. This may also include advantages relating to tax planning. Moreover, when making the will, you can also create special responsibilities. Special responsibilities while bequeathing something to someone, then you can create a special responsibility that yes, these are also the obligations which that person should fulfill before acquiring the assets under will. So these are some of the limited benefits. One of another benefit is that if there is a special person in your life that requires, who has special needs, maybe a child with mental disabilities, physical disabilities requiring special provisioning and special needs, you can also appoint a guardian through your will. Further, you can make special provisions through your will. Now, one of the most important questions that is asked from me is whether I'll remain the owner of my properties during my lifetime. Let me tell you one thing, that a will can be changed n number of times. There is no limitation to it. If you have written one will and tomorrow if you want to change that particular will, you are at full liberty. You remain the owner of your properties during your lifetime. You can alienate your properties, you can sell your properties, you can dispose of your properties without any hindrance, irrespective of the fact that you have made a will. I can also say in a manner, will is a waste paper till the demise of the person who has made this particular will, or the particular will, or so the basic thing is that till the demise, till the death of the testator, the person who is making the will, it's merely a piece of paper, non-binding paper. Why it is non-binding? It is a unilateral document. Unilateral document means that this particular document has been created by you. It is not even binding on you. There is no two parties involved in the making of a will. So it is not binding at all. You can always change your will at your wishes, as per your wishes. Now, when we have dealt with this particular thing, that what will happen to my properties during the life of my during your lifetime, The answer I have already told, that you remain the owner of your properties. However, what are the methods for changing the will? How can you change the will? You can tear off your old will. You can make a codicil. Now, what is the difference between a will and codicil? Technically speaking, once you make a will, all subsequent changes made in that will, pertaining to that will, are known as codicils. Means that by virtue of a second document, you may refer to your earlier document and write whatever you want to write in that particular codicil. You may write a new will, you may write a codicil. Codicil is amendment to your original will, to your earlier will. Now, what are the basic terms and conditions for making your will? First of all, you should be in a sound disposing mind, capable of understanding the act or the things that are being done by you. That is one of the basic requirements. The second thing is, the person should be major. It should be without any coercion, influence, duress. Means there should not be any undue influence. If it is marred by undue influence, definitely that will goes, that becomes a kind of nullity. Then it should be made because of your free will, by your free will and your own volition. You should have the desire to make the will. So these are some of the basic conditions for making will. Now coming to another aspect of it. What are the other aspects? That when you are making a will, first of all, let me clear one notion, that no stamp paper is required. You need to have only one thing, that is a piece of white paper. A will can be made on a piece of white paper. What are the other requirements? You must identify yourself clearly in your will. Your name, father's name, age, religion, address, all these things should be mentioned. Then you may like to identify yourself, identify your legal heirs in the will. You may mention the name of your wife, spouse, children, their matrimonial status, etc. And then you can write your will. There is no formal language associated with any will. Making of the will means that assistance of a lawyer is immaterial, it is inconsequential. If you are able to write your own will, please write it. It is not necessary that if the will should be in a particular format. There is no format of a will. It is a reproduction of your desire to distribute your properties as per your wishes. That's all. Now, what are the other essential features or requirements for making a valid will? The will must have an executor. Now, who is an executor? An executor is a person who is appointed by the testator, who is making the person who is making the will, that after his demise, the executor will distribute the properties and give effect to the will. Give effect to the will as per the provisions of the will. So the executor will collect and realize the estate of the deceased, make payments, and distribute the legacies, that is the properties of the deceased. Anybody who is capable of contracting can be appointed as an executor. The executor should be a major. That is one thing. The other thing is the executor should be a little bit young person, younger than the person who is making the will. Because ultimately, after the demise of the person, it is the executor, demise of the testator, it is the executor who is going to give effect to the will. Now, this appointment of executor should be considered as a mandatory step. You can have one executor or you can have more than one executors. It is always good to appoint more than one executors who should be capable of acting in the absence of the other. Why? There may be n number of reasons because of which an executor who has been appointed by you may not be willing to act an executor, or he might have been incapacitated to act as an executor, maybe due to illness, maybe due to travel, maybe due to the shifting of residence or place. So there should be more than one executor who should be appointed. This is one aspect. Then the next thing is that when your will become enforceable, when it is witnessed by two witnesses at least. This is the basic condition. There has to be two witnesses. One thing, those witnesses sign the will. When you are signing the will, that is important. And means you must be signing the will in the presence of the two witnesses, who must also sign in the presence of the testator and each other. Means the signature on the will has to be by the testator, maker of the will, as well as the witnesses have to be simultaneous. If you fail to appoint, if you fail to have two witnesses in your will is invalid. It is of no consequence at all. So what we have discussed, the necessity of the executor, one thing. The second thing, the presence of two witnesses at the time of the execution, and simultaneous signatures of the witnesses at the time of the execution of the will and in the presence of each other. The next thing, which is one of the most important things which we all have to understand. What is that? That is registration of the will. The question here is whether registration of a will is necessary or not. The answer is it is not mandatory at all to register your will. But the advice is that you must always try to register your will at the earliest possible. A registered will has many advantages. A registered will has many advantages, and what we have to understand is that first of all, the will practically becomes more or less challengeable. You must have heard the stories that the will was registered and it was challenged by the legal heirs in the court. The challenge may be on various grounds. What may be the grounds? That the person at the time of the making of the will was not capable of understanding his acts. It was not by way of free volition or his own free will. There was undue influence of one legal heir on the testator. These kind of objections are usually raised. So when you are making the will, practically what happens, that there is a kind of guarantee that is attached to the will, that this will is genuine. There is a kind of authenticity that is attached to the will, that the will is genuine. Because for registration of your will, you go to the office of registrar along with the two witnesses, present yourself before the registrar. Registrar asks certain questions. Registrar also asks the witnesses whether the testator has signed the will in their presence. So all the basic legal formalities are reaffirmed at the office of the registrar. So it becomes a kind of non-challengeable document. What are the other benefits? Here we have to understand the concept of probate and letter of administration and succession. Every will, technically speaking, has to be probated from the court of law. Probate means certification of the will by the competent court that the will is genuine. Court certifies that the will is genuine, and once the probate has been granted, means the will has been certified by the court. What happens? Then the executor can execute the will as per the wishes of the testator. Now, what happens, and you must have also experienced at times, that when you are going to the municipal corporation for the purpose of mutation of your properties, etc., or if you are going to the bank, or if you are going for the transmission of your shares, etc., a lot of reliance is placed on the registered will. If the will is registered, at times, not all the times, the probate is not insisted upon by the banks as well as other authorities. Means that you save a lot of cost in terms of probating of the will. If you have to go for the probate of the will, most of the time which is unregistered will, a lot of doubt is created over unregistered will. It's presumed that there may be a possibility of doubt, there may be a dispute amongst the legal heirs regarding the contents of the will. So no authority or the banks or other authorities may be willing to act upon an unregistered will. But once the will is registered, there is a kind of authenticity attached. The names of the legal heirs are given in the will. The shares have been defined under the will. So that brings a kind of authenticity. Now, if you are going for the probate, you have to pay a court fee. Like in Delhi, it is from 2.5% to 4% of the market value of the property that is included in the will. It's quite a huge amount. The court fees that is payable is 2.5% of the market value of the property, 2.5% to 4%. Now, friends, we have to understand the concept of probate, letter of administration, and succession. You will have to go to the court for obtaining the probate of the will if the most of the will, if it has in it an executor has been appointed. If the will consists of the name of an executor, then you opt for or you go for probate of your will. But if there is no executor appointed, in that particular case, you will have to apply before the court for letter of administration. Letter of administration means the court directs that the property should be distributed according to the contents of the will, registered or unregistered, which does not have an executor. There is a second case also where letter of administration is issued. And what is that second case? The second case is where there is no will but immovable properties are left. So in that particular case also you may have to go for letter of administration. And in case only movable properties have been left, in that case you may have to go for the succession certificate from the court. Succession certificate from the court. So probate when executor is appointed, letter of administration when there is no executor, and succession certificate when only movable properties are there and there is no will. There is no will. Now, we will not discuss the kinds of wills, which may be a simple will, conditional will, contingent will, joint will, mutual will, concurrent will. The best will is a plain, simple will, which is not dependent on any other factors. You should try to keep your will as simple as possible. There should not be any complications and nothing should be left for imagination. There should be nothing left for the interpretation by the courts. You must also remember one thing, that in a will, it is not necessary to give details of your properties. Means you may simply mention that I possess certain immovable properties, this and that immovable property, I possess so such and such, I possess such and such movable properties, and these should be given to first my spouse, and then in case my spouse predeceases me, to my children in equal share or whatever proportion you wish. So here you have to understand it is not necessary to mention or give the narration of your assets. But at times it also becomes necessary to give a narration of your assets. Because at times you may be having multiple properties and your legal heirs may not be even aware that you own such and such properties. You have bank accounts in such and such bank. You have got so many fixed deposits. You have so many lockers in different banks. So wherever necessary, give details of your property, but it all depends upon you. It is not mandatory at all. But if you are giving a specific property to one of the specific legal heirs, then it will become necessary to give details of the property, that my property shall be distributed according to such and such manner, or will go to the particular property will go to a particular legal heir. So till this moment what we have discussed: need of two witnesses, need of an executor, advantages of registration, you save a lot of money, your will is presumed to be true, correct, genuine, without any undue influence, made out of free will and volition. Now there is a term which is known as privileged will. Privileged will is for persons from armed forces, which we are not going to discuss here. If they are actively participating and working in remote locations and they are on their duties, then they can make privileged wills. Then here is one more thing which is quite important to understand. Can a will be revoked by marriage? The answer is no. No for whom? For Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs and Jains. There is no automatic revocation of your will. But if the person is a Parsi or a Christian, by marriage there will be an automatic revocation of the will. So what you have to do, that in case you marry after subsequent to making a will, your will, then if you wish, you can again revisit your will and make another will. Now, there are various other questions which are associated with the will. What will happen if my will is lost? Then will can be proved in various other ways as provided under the provisions of the Evidence Act. Can there be an oral will? Is there a possibility of an oral will? The answer is again, there cannot be any oral will. There can't be any oral will. The will has to be in writing. There is no formal way of writing. It may be typewritten. It may be in your handwriting, on a piece of paper of whatever nature, attested by two witnesses. That's all. Can at this particular juncture of our legal system, when lot of e-documents are being executed, are being made, is there a possibility of making an e-will or not? Means electronic, can you make an electronic will? The answer is again no. There is no possibility of an electronic will because it has to be in writing, that is one thing, and secondly it has to be signed by the testator and signed by the two witnesses. So as of now, there is no instance in courts which acknowledges or the concept of e-will. Now, there is one more thing that is important for you to remember, that you have validly executed a will. With whom you should keep your will? Who should be custodian of your will? You make a will, you keep it with yourself without intimating it to someone close to you, and the person dies. What will happen? Because the legal heirs may not be able to find the will, in that particular case, what will happen? Then there is a possibility that they may think that there was no will at all. So it is always a good policy that after making the will, you should make a disclosure that I have made a will. Maybe I have kept the will with such and such person, my so and so lawyer, maybe with banker, maybe in a particular locker, maybe with a particular friend or relative. So at the time of demise, the will can be produced and given to the legal heirs. There is also a process where you can deposit your will with the office of the registrar. Here I would also like to tell you one more thing regarding the registration of will. It is not advisable, but there is a kind of possibility attached to it, that a will can even be registered after death. So the registration of will is possible after death, very difficult, cumbersome, but yes, possibility is there, legal provisions are there, and the wills are registered even after death, but not a good policy to leave your will unregistered. Now, friends, I will take you to another concept, and that is a concept is known as living wills. Most of the time, I'll just proceed for registration of will. Okay. Now, living wills. What are living wills, by the way? Living will is not technically a will. It is a kind of an advance directive, and this concept has been recognized by the Supreme Court of India in the case of Common Cause versus Union of India. Living wills, the jurisprudence of advance directive is followed. The Supreme Court has held in this case of Common Cause versus Union of India that right to die with dignity is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution. This judgment paved the way for the grant of passive euthanasia which is also described as physical assisted suicide. And for this also, you can refer to this particular case to understand the entire process of making a living will, where you can make your living will, as well as you can also give directions that in case a person falls terminally ill, what is required to be done in that particular case, where the person cannot be recovered or the person becomes terminally ill. In that particular case, what are the steps to be taken, what is to be done, when the medical support should be withdrawn, and thereafter what will happen to the properties. An entire mechanism has been prescribed for making living wills, and this entire mechanism has to be followed. But yes, living will is possible. Here, here I would like to also tell you the another way of your inheritance planning. This was, to some extent, I have tried to give you a brief idea about the wills. I have tried to convey the basics of the wills, and however, now friends, we have to understand what are the other ways of in the living will. There is one point which is left, which I must tell you, that you can specify a person who will take decisions on your behalf. You can appoint a person to take a decision about the withdrawal of the life support in your living will. So, living will is equally important, and it all depends whether one would like to make it or not, and it will depend on various circumstances. Now, what is the other way? If you don't write the way, under the Hindu Succession Act, there is a complete methodology that has been given for intestate succession in the form of class 1 legal heirs, class 2 legal heirs, and there are other provisions regarding the females, then there are other provisions. But what is the other way for succession planning? And one of the best way is making a trust. By making a trust, basically what happens, you avoid the cost of the probate, one thing, after your death. The second thing is that you also avoid the chances of challenge to your will, because the trust is basically formed, executed, and administered during your lifetime. You can make many types of trusts. One may be living revocable trust. Now, what is living revocable trust? In living revocable trust, you make a trust, that is one thing, and thereafter you retain with you to revoke the trust properties from the trust or revoke the trust itself. It is living revocable trust. So what happens? That living revocable trust is made during your lifetime, remain under your control. You can be one of the trustees, and you also take the benefits which are attached with the incidence of trust. So, as we know, the trust may be public and private trusts, specific or discretionary trusts. What are specific trusts and what are discretionary trusts? Specific trusts are where we mention that the properties which have been handed over to the trust will be administered, will be used for in a particular manner, particular purpose. You define the entire purpose and the beneficiaries. Whereas in case of discretionary trust, what happens? You make a trust, and after making the trust, you leave the discretion, the entire discretion of administering the property of the trust on the trustees.
Hello?
On the trustees.
Yeah.
The third is
मैं तेरे को call back करता हूँ.
revocable trust and irrevocable trust. So, living revocable trust is one example of revocable trust, and irrevocable trust means that once you have created the trust, you hand over, transfer the properties which you want to the trust without retaining any power of changing your decisions. Means the decisions which have been taken are final. These trusts may be made for a special child in the family with special needs in the family. Maybe some old people, maybe minors, maybe some to meet certain other kind of contingencies. You can have more than one trust. You can have different trusts for different legal heirs as per their needs. And you can also have a combination of both trust and will. Means for the special child, you make a trust. But for others, you leave a will. There can be a mix and match. Then, friends, there is a testamentary and non-testamentary trust. All the trusts, these kind of trusts will fall into the category of non-testamentary trust. What is a testamentary trust? There is a possibility that you can make a trust through your will also. Means you can make a trust through your will also. You can mention that after your demise, a trust will be created, and that trust will administer my properties as per the following norms in the following manner, and you can detail your wishes. Trust have got its own advantages. In trust, you can appoint yourself as a trustee, other individuals as a trustee, a company as a trustee, a corporate entity as a trustee, a professional as a trustee. It all depends on your needs. Moreover, a trust may have certain tax benefits. A trust may have certain advantages. A trust is not challengeable normally, and a trust is normally made irrevocable until unless the same has been made revocable by you. So you can make different type of trust for better estate planning. With this, friends, I would like to stop here for the time being, and I'll request you all to ask questions, maybe through the group chat. And I have got some questions, and I would like to answer. And you can also take the advantage of Mr. Rohit Jain, who is present here, and he is a direct tax expert. If you want some direct tax advice relating to the trust and other things, you can definitely put question to Mr. Rohit Jain, maybe through your my microphone, and he'll be able to hear, and he's here to answer also. So let us take the benefit of his presence also. A question has come to me. No timeline in probate of will. Yes, there is no timeline in probate of will. Normally, what is the time that is taken for the probate of will? It may be anything between 8 months to 1 year. It depends from various jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In one jurisdiction, it may be 6 months. In some jurisdiction, it may be more than 6 months. It may go up to 1 year if it is uncontested.
Mr. Dalia, can you highlight about the video recording of the will when the will is executing, so that there cannot be any challenge, or like instead of going for registration, we can have video recordings and all these things, so that to avoid the
Yes, sir, I have understood your question.
Yeah.
Sir, what is video recording of the will and what is registration? Let us first understand one thing. Video recording is merely creation of an additional evidence that the will was without coercion, that the will was duly signed by the executor, was duly witnessed by the 2 witnesses. You are merely recording happening of a event. That I'll request all of you to mute your microphones so that there is no disturbance, and we are able to take the benefit of this particular session to the best possible manner. So what is we were on the aspect of the video recording of the will. Video recording does not attach any additional benefit. Video recording does not substitute the registration of the will, because registration of the will is done before a government authority, whereas video recording is a private event. Video recording at best is an additional evidence to prove the authenticity of the will. This is what I would like to say. But video recording does not replace the registration. Registration has definitely got additional advantages and immense advantages. Moreover, like I have given you an example, that certain authorities will not ask for the probate if you are approaching them with the registered will. But if you are going with unregistered will and saying that we have got the video recording, nobody is going to view your video recording except in the court of law.
Mr. Dalmia, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir, please.
Sir, what is the
Can you
stamp?
identify yourself, sir?
Sir, Gaurav Jain this side.
Gaurav.
What is the stamp duty payable on the registration of will? Is stamp
very
duty
low.
payable?
It is, first of all, there is no stamp duty payable on it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it can be executed on a piece of paper. Only when you go for the registration, there are certain registration charges which are to be paid registration fee. Otherwise, there is no stamp duty, no stamp paper required. Only white paper is more than enough, or any piece of paper is more than enough.
So in that sense, registration is more beneficial than going for a probate, because as advised by you, in a probate we may have to pay court fees.
Yes, sir.
Right.
This is
On
my
that
practical
basis.
experience. You are absolutely right, sir.
Yes. Okay. So
This
thank
is my
you, sir.
practical experience, that you can save a lot of things. You can save a lot of hassle, and a lot of problems can be avoided by registered will.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Dalmia sir, I am CAS Narayanan.
Yes, sir.
Can you please tell me whether an executor, whether a beneficiary under the will can be an executor, appointed as an executor also?
Yes, yes, sir. Let me answer, sir. Sir, yes, a beneficiary can be appointed an executor, and it is always a good policy to appoint a beneficiary as an executor, because beneficiary is ultimately the ultimate person who is going to benefit from the will. But here you remember one more thing, that a beneficiary cannot be a witness to the will.
Okay. Okay.
Beneficiary cannot be a witness to will. Beneficiary can be an executor too.
Okay,
Sir, my name is
you,
sir.
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question. I have two questions actually. The first question that is, you were telling that the will can be registered after the death of the testator as well. So who can register a will upon the death of a testator?
Hello.
And
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
and number two, my second question is, after the death of the testator, is there any timeline within which we have to go to the court for probate or letter of administration or anything as such?
First of all, there is no time limit. And the answer to your first query is that any beneficiary can approach the sub-registrar for registration of the will after death. There is a complete procedure that has been provided, that has been given, which has to be followed. And on completion of those formalities, the will after death can be registered.
I have sent one query.
Sir,
in
hello.
Sir,
Hello.
yes.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Dalmia.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So my question is, so what if a person who has purchased the property from the testator before his demise, can he be a party to the testamentary petition which is between the legal heirs?
My answer is, when somebody is going for probate, letter of admission and other things, then a public notice is also given. That person can be a party to the petition before the court.
Hello, Mr. Dalmia.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. I am Vibhor Garg, CA.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Sir, I have a question that if a legal heir is not the beneficiary of the will,
Yes,
in
sir.
a will, then we can make him a witness, because then he will not be able to challenge the will.
Yes,
Is it a good policy?
you are absolutely right. If a legal heir is not the beneficiary, then there is no issue in making that person a witness. Sir.
It would be a good policy, sir.
It's okay. It's okay. I won't say it's good or bad, but it's okay. It's fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, whether probate is not required in case of registered will?
Sir, I have not said this thing that probate is not required in case of registered will. Yes, definitely Supreme Court says probate is required in each and every case. Probate is a must. But at times the authorities accept the registered will as a genuine proof, as a valid proof of genuineness of the will, and they act on the basis of that particular will.
डालिया सर गुड इवनिंग एक प्रैक्टिकल इशू है सर
सर एक मिनट आप होल्ड करेंगे सर एक मिनट आपसे होल्ड करेंगे एक बार एक करके अगर हम दोबारा बोलें तो मुझे बेहतर रहेगा मेरे लिए
डालिया सर गुड इवनिंग मैं नितेश बात कर रहा हूँ सर एक प्रैक्टिकल इशू है बताऊं सर
एक मिनट सर पटोदिया जी मैं अभी आपको अनम्यूट करता हूँ एक मिनट आप होल्ड करेंगे जी यस नितेश जी
सर प्रैक्टिकल इशू है सर एक मेरा क्लाइंट है ही इज 24 इयर्स ओल्ड उन्होंने बिल बनाने के लिए कहा है सर उसमें इशू क्या है कि उनके पास एक प्रॉपर्टी है बट प्रॉपर्टी अभी उनके नाम से रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है उन्होंने प्रॉपर्टी लोन लिया हुआ है और अभी कोविड के चक्कर में रजिस्टर्ड नहीं हुआ है तो क्या इसको मेंशन करना चाहिए सर प्रॉपर्टी को
हाँ आप मेंशन कर सकते हैं देयर इज नो इशू because ultimately whatever you possess at the time of your death whatever you may acquire hereafter that is going to be counted
मतलब इसको विल का पार्ट बनाना चाहिए सर
विल का पार्ट बना लेना कोई हर्ज नहीं है मतलब उसमें हर्ज कोई नहीं है अगर आप बना
थैंक यू सर
Dalmia sir, I have a question for Rohit Jain sir. Can I take that?
yes
Vineet Agarwal from
एक सेकंड में एक क्वेश्चन पटोदिया जी से ले लूंगा अब
डालमिया जी मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि हम लोग बिल के ऊपर इसका डिजिटल सिग्नेचर ले सकते हैं
क्या चीज सर दोबारा बोलिए थोड़ा जोर से बोलिए
हम लोग विल के ऊपर विटनेस का डिजिटल सिग्नेचर ले सकते हैं
मेरा आंसर नहीं है सर मेरा आंसर नहीं है सर अच्छा आप रोहित जी से क्वेश्चन पूछिए रोहित जी से कौन पूछ रहे थे क्वेश्चन
हाँ जी sir. Rohit ji, regarding trust, what are the tax benefits available right now? So we can take advantages of that in planning.
No, what I understand, you are asking
बधाने चाल सके रोहित जी एक मिनट आप होल्ड करेंगे एक बार सबको म्यूट कर दिया मैंने अब जो है रोहित जी आप अपने आप को अनम्यूट करके आप दोबारा से बोलिए.
Yes. So the question basically is what are the advantages or disadvantages of, from the tax perspective, of formation of a trust, if I understood the question correctly. So if I were to, before answering this issue, if I may just explain what are the tax implications in the hands of a trust. Now there are 2-3 sections which are important. One is section 161 and 164. So basically what section 161 of the Income Tax Act says is that the trustees of a trust are assessed like a representative assessee. They are assessed as a representative assessee, and they are assessed in the same manner and to the same extent as if the income is assessable in the hands of the beneficiary. Okay. Now, as Dalmia sir explained, there can be 2 types of trust. One is a determinate trust or a specific trust, as he called, and the second can be an indeterminate trust. And this has been specifically dealt with in section 164 of the Income Tax Act. Now, in case of one specific trust, where the beneficiaries are known as well as their respective interest in the trust are known, then in that situation, section 161 comes into play, and therefore income in the hands of the trustees is assessed as if it is assessed in the hands of the beneficiaries. So therefore, the rate of taxation will be same as if it is assessed in the hands of the beneficiary. Now, in fact, section 164 of the Income Tax Act gives the authority to the assessing officer or the discretion to the assessing officer to assess the income of a determinate trust either in the hands of the trust or in the hands of the beneficiaries, because the rates of taxation, the manner of taxation is same whether the income is assessed in the hands of the beneficiary or the trust. Now, coming to the indeterminate trust, when the beneficiaries are not known or their respective shares in the trust is not known. So an indeterminate trust is when either the beneficiaries are not known or their respective shares in the trust are not known. In that situation, 164 provides that income of the trust will be taxed at the maximum marginal rate in the hands of the trust itself. So it will be taxed at the highest rate, and thereafter any distribution from the trust to the beneficiaries is not taxable, because that would otherwise tantamount to double taxation. So once the income gets taxed in the hands of a trust, it is not separately taxable in the hands of the beneficiary. Now, to answer your question, what could be the benefits or disadvantages? If I may point out, in fact, all these provisions were inserted by the Taxation Law Amendment Act 1987. Prior to 1987, people used to make trust. There used to be disadvantages of formation of a trust because the trust used to be a separate assessable entity and you used to get a benefit of separate slab rates. Now, after all these amendments, when the sections have been amended, it has been specifically provided that in case of indeterminate trust, income will be taxed at the maximum marginal rate, and in case of determinate trust, it will be taxed in the same manner as if the income is taxable in the hands of the beneficiaries. There is actually no advantage or disadvantage of forming a trust. The income is taxed in the like manner as if it is taxed in the hands of the beneficiary. What is important and the most important advantage of the formation of trust, as Mr. Dalmia pointed out, it is more for the purpose of estate planning. It is for the purpose of ensuring that your assets goes to your beneficiaries in the way and in the manner you like, and in order to avoid the challenges to the will. That is the precise answer to the issue which has been raised.
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है with Vijay sir actually.
Yes sir.
So I have raised a question few time back कि marriage के बाद एक pre-existing will revoke हो जाएगा कि नहीं, तो मेरे पास एक जवाब आया only in case of पारसी. लेकिन जब मैं सेक्शन 69 देखता हूँ ऑफ द इंडियन सक्सेशन एक्ट, वहाँ पे टेस्टेटर मैरिज के बाद वहाँ पे लिखा है एवरी विल शैल बी रिवोक्ड बाय द मैरिज ऑफ द मेकर. तो इस पे कोई कमेंट है क्या
सर? इस वक्त जो है फॉर द टाइमिंग मैं आपको यही कहूंगा कि व्हाट आई हैव स्टेटेड दैट इन केस ऑफ हिंदू, जैन, सिख एंड वन मोर बुद्धिस्ट जो है दिस थिंग will prevail and it will not revoke, because मुझे थोड़ा सा एक्ट वगैरह को रेफर करना पड़ेगा. तो at this particular stage I don't think I'll be I'm in a
No,
position.
no issues,
We can
sir.
discuss it.
I'm expecting another session, sir, requesting you all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Vijay, this is Vinay Vahesh. I have
Yes,
one
Vinay.
question for you. Supposing I have properties all over the world, immovable and movable properties, in the form of, say, flats or land and bank accounts.
Yes, sir.
Are they all to be covered in the will which I make sitting in India, or do I have to make different wills for different properties all over the world?
Sir, it is advisable that you should make separate different wills for different jurisdictions, because the laws are different. The laws, and according to their laws, you may have to modify. You have to tailor make your will. So it is advisable. Otherwise, nothing in law prevents you from making one will.
Good evening. Good evening, Dalmia ji. This is Harsh Arora.
हाँ हर्ष सर नमस्कार.
Namaskar. I have a small question.
Yes,
you
sir.
mentioned, sir, that obtaining probate is quite expensive in the form that is stamp duty, or the duty is to 2.5% to 4%.
Yes,
is
sir.
it possible that we do not, or we obtain probate for only some of the properties, not all the properties as such?
It is very much possible, sir. It is very much possible.
All right.
Sir, I have
I have a question for Rohit ji. To answer that, how to decide the status of the trust under the Income Tax Act? Either it will be individual, AOP, or how you will decide that?
I think Mr. Rohit Jain can answer this question.
So basically, to answer your query, the trust, it depends upon who are the trustees of the trust. So the status of the trust will be dependent upon who the trustees are. So if there are more than one trustees, normally the status of the trust is that of an AOP. But what I have explained earlier is that the status of the trust becomes immaterial for the simple reason that because of the provisions of section 161, the income of the trust in case of a determinate trust is assessed in the same manner and to the same extent as if the income is accessible in the hands of the beneficiary. So therefore, suppose if I were to give an example, supposingly there are two beneficiaries in a trust. One is a father and the other is a son, and the will is that of or the trust is created for the benefit of two people, and the father shares is say 75% and the son share is say 25%. In case the father has income above 30% of slab rates, then in that situation the share relatable to the father will be taxed after considering taking into consideration his existing income plus the income which he would have received from the trust, and thereafter the slab rates would be applied. And similar calculation will be done in case of the share of a son. So therefore, the status of the trustees is actually may not be relevant, but ultimately the income will be assessed in the same manner as if it is accessible in the hands of the beneficiary. But depending upon who the trustees are, the status will have, because if the section says that if there are more than one trustee, then the trustees will be treated like just like an AOP.
Okay, like in the continuation of that, sir, one just I want to clarify, like these are the PF trust and these are superannuation trust which are made for the company's employees. So will that be categorized as an individual or not?
No, because the beneficiaries over there are all the employees. So when the beneficiaries are employees, if you see section 164, there is a specific exceptions given. Because normally in case of where the employees are the beneficiaries, the specific shares of the beneficiaries may not be determined at a particular point of time. In the normal course, it might have become an indeterminate trust. But there are specific exceptions given for the trust created for the benefit of employees. And it specifically says that those trusts will be treated, the status of the trust will be that of an AOP and the income will be assessed in the manner of an AOP.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, Dalmia sir के लिए question है.
They are, Rohit sir, they are exempted PF trust. So they are tax exempted. So ab initio there is
so
nothing
in that
to.
situation, income will not be taxed in the hands of.
Yeah, yes.
The question was with regard to the status.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Rohit ji, sir, good evening. Vibhor here.
Good evening.
Sir, जो PAN apply करेंगे वो with किस status में करेंगे? AOP or trust?
So अगर there are more than multiple trustees, then in that situation AOP के नाम से apply होगा.
And will there be a different rate for discretionary trust also?
So as I pointed out, in case of a discretionary trust, it is the maximum marginal rate which is applicable as per section 164, unless the trust falls in the 4 exceptions which are given in 164.
Rohit, can I ask a query?
Hello.
What would be the MMR considering that now the surcharge is 37% for income above 5 crores? So would the surcharge be applicable on the basis of income, or would it be the highest tax rate plus surcharge for the purpose of MMR on a discretionary trust?
So the maximum marginal rate still continues to be 30%, and depending upon the quantum of income, the surcharge will apply.
I want to ask one question. Rohit, Tarun this side, I have a question.
Yes, Tarunji.
See, the exemption under section 56(2)(10) applies only if the trust is created for the solely for the benefit of the individual. What if one of the beneficiaries is settler himself together with his relative?
So, the specific exemption which is given in 56(2)(10) is when you create a trust for the benefit of the relatives. So, your specific question is there is no specific exclusion for the person who is giving the property. His name is not there. So, basically, if the trust is created for the benefit of the person giving the property as well as the relatives of that property, whether it is still exempt, that's the specific question I think is. So my answer to this would be, actually, according to me, there is no requirement for to provide that the person himself should also be the beneficiary. The reason is this: as I explained, the trust is only a representative assessee. The assessment of the trust is in the manner and to the same extent as if it is the beneficiary. So the section 56, the purpose of application of section 56 is that it is basically to tax deemed gift, and the exceptions which are given is that if you give a gift to your relatives, in that situation it is exempt. Now when you settle a trust, and in the trust your relatives are the beneficiary, so it is like a deemed gift to your relatives, and therefore there is a specific exclusion which is given. Now when in the trust, you yourself, who is the giver of the property, is also one of the beneficiaries, then it is like giving to yourself, for which according to me you don't require a specific exclusion. You can't be giving a gift to yourself. So if in the trust you yourself are the beneficiary, you don't need a specific exclusion for the purpose of section 56(2)(10). And therefore, precisely according to me, the lawmakers did not thought it fit, or there was no requirement to specifically mention that the trust is created for yourself and the relatives of the person giving.
Okay. Another question. Thanks, Rohit. Another question is this clubbing provisions for a daughter-in-law in section 64 vis-a-vis this trust. So there is a Delhi High Court decision. You must be, this is Pushpavati. So in which they said, okay, once you go through the medium of trust, then there is no clubbing as per se. So according to me, it's not a good law. Would that still, what is being?
Actually, I have not gone through this decision, but I can check and I can come back to you on this.
Okay.
Dalmia sir, I have a question. What we understand from the property is, sir, you are on mute, Dalmia sir.
Okay, I have an
Sir, there is something called as ancestral property and something self-acquired property. So is there any way, or is there any way that the ancestral property can change its status to self-acquired property by operation of law or something like that?
Okay, let me give you an answer to this thing. That in a non-testamentary succession, only properties which have undergone succession according to section 8 of the Hindu Succession Act will be separate property. Else the property remains a jointly held ancestral property and will not be treated as a separate property. General rule is proportionary property, ancestral property devolves as ancestral and separate as separate.
Sir, I have one question. Puranik here.
Yes, sir.
For Dalmia, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I want to ask a question regarding ancestral property. There is a father, and there are sons A and B, and they have a joint property.
Sir, can you come again? Can you repeat your question, sir? Again?
Yeah. there is a case where a father is there, a mother is there, and they have two sons, A and B.
Right.
A also has a major son called C. Now, after the death of the father, A wants to give his NOC or no objection to transfer his share of property to his brother B in a joint property. In such a situation, is it compulsory for A to take the permission of C, his major son who is a co-partner in the Hindu property? Does he need to take permission before giving NOC to his brother B?
Okay, let me give you an answer to this thing, sir. Please try to understand.
Yeah.
A and B are brothers. C is the son of A. A and C are also co-partners in this particular case. So in this particular case, A can give his property only to the extent of his share in the co-partnership property, not beyond that.
Okay.
Not beyond that. So ultimately, if he is giving the permission or transferring the entire property, then he has to take the permission from C as well. C as well, sir.
Okay.
Means for the 25% share of the entire property, he will have to take the permission.
Okay.
Mr. Dalmia, I have a question. Mr.
Yes.
Dalmia, I have a question. Tarun this side.
Yes, Tarun.
How do you overcome this rule of perpetuity under the Transfer of Property Act vis-a-vis the trust? Is it possible to overcome that rule of perpetuity?
Sir, first of all, rule of perpetuity cannot be overcome. That is an absolute principle, sir. If you want to, if you want to perpetuate the entire succession plan, that is not possible at all, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Dalmia sir, I also have a query.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can a legal heir claim title on the property on the basis of adverse possession? Now, so assuming legal heir is residing in a ancestral property for a period of more than 12 years or maybe more, then can he claim title on that property on the basis of law of adverse possession?
The answer is no, sir. Because there is no adverse possession there. That legal heir has been residing in that particular premises with the permission of the others. If at some point of time the legal heir has been asked 12 years before that you leave the property and thereafter he is still possessing the property, then we can think of a situation of adverse possession, not without that. Here I would like to add one more thing for the benefit of us all, that in case no will has been left or no estate planning has been done, in that case the property will devolve upon the successor as per the Hindu Succession Act. First upon the class 1 legal heirs, where all the sons, daughters, son's son, daughter's son, daughter's daughter, son's daughter, and there is a complete list of table in the schedule in class 1 legal heirs.
क्या बोलना है?
Excuse me, please silence your microphone, please. I'll do that.
क्या बोल रहे हो?
Okay, so what I was trying to tell you was that there is an entire list of persons who will become entitled to these properties. So only by making a will or an effective estate planning, you will be able to exclude certain persons from claiming the property.
So my question to Mr. Dalmia.
Yes, sir.
This is Rajesh Gupta. You did mention that in the will there could be more than one executor. You did mention that in a will there could be more than one executor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what will be the way of to decide the who will decide what will be if there are more than one executor? How would they will decide among themselves?
It is basically the art of writing. Let me tell you, the art of writing is that I can say that if A is not willing or incapacitated to act as an executor, then B can act, or I can say in the will itself that both A and B can act jointly as well as severally, and there are so many permutation and combinations which can be used.
But if it is mentioned in the will that the executors will take the decision unanimously, and there is some dispute between these executors and they are not able to decide what will be the interpretation of the clause, then in that case, what will be the situation?
Then the court is the only way.
Okay.
I have got just one question, Dalmia sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I have a question that one of our unregistered will, like my mom's Masi was there, and we filed a probate in High Court. We lost in trial court. And one of the properties is under rent. The rent agreement was unregistered. And now since it's been 9 years, they are not vacating the property as well. So can, just because the will has a thumb impression, can we file a case against the tenants to vacate the property?
Your question is little bit not clear to me. Whose thumb impressions are there?
The one who made the will, thumb impression are there. The will is unregistered. She was hospitalized at that point of time.
First of all, the thumb impression is good enough to prove that the will was executed. It's not necessary that there ought to be a formal signature. That is one thing. So thumb impression is good enough. Now the second thing is that one has to prove the validity of the will or genuine or authenticity of the will.
Yes, sir.
Genuine.
Sir, that we lost in trial court.
Yes, that I understand. That I have understood because you said that you lost in the trial court.
Although there was no one to contest the will, still we lost it because of suspicious circumstances.
Maybe there is a possibility.
Now it is in high court and it is in regular list right now. Okay. And the problem is the tenants are not vacating the property, neither they are paying the rent as well. So can we file a case for the rent eviction and all these things under that circumstances?
As per my understanding, the answer is yes, you can file.
Okay, sir. Can we contact you also?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
I have a question from Mr. Rohit Jain. Can you explain a taxation of a specific trust for the benefit of the minor?
In case of a minor, his income gets clubbed with the parent. So in that situation, what will happen is the minor, the taxation would be determined as if it is clubbed in the income of the parent, and the rate of tax will be determined, and accordingly tax will be paid by the trust.
The income would be clubbed in the hands of the parents. Is it so?
Yes. What happens is in case of a minor, the income of a minor gets clubbed with the income of a parent. That's a normal law.
Yes.
So in case of a trust also, trust is basically a pass-through entity. As I explained, trust is assessed in the same manner as if it is assessed in the hands of the beneficiary. So since the beneficiary over here is the minor, whose income in the normal course would have got clubbed with the income of the parent. So in the hands of the trust, we will compute the tax liability by taking into consideration the income of the father, the income relatable to the share of the minor, and then the appropriate tax rate will be determined and appropriate tax has to be paid by the trust.
Dalmia sir, I have a question for you, sir.
Just a minute. Mr. Amardeep Jaiswal wants to ask some question.
Yeah, Mr. Dalmia. I have got one question. You had stated that there is a procedure for registration of will after death of the testator also. Can you please let us know where do we find this procedure, and are there limitations after the execution of the will? This has to be presented before the concerned registrar.
Sir, I'll advise that the best thing would be that you contact your local registrar where you would like to register the will.
Okay, but is there any
process is given under the Indian Registration Act? That is one thing.
Okay.
But there are certain additional formalities which are required to be fulfilled. Like you may have to produce a doctor's certificate, you may be required to produce the witnesses, maybe other things to prove the genuineness of the will. So here I would like to suggest that it is best that you contact the local registrar. They have to tell you, they are bound to tell you the entire process.
And the second question is, you said now is it probate is required in all types of will. My understanding was that in certain jurisdictions like Maharashtra, where probate of a will is necessary, but in other jurisdictions it is not necessary. And even with an ordinary will without any probate, municipal authorities and cantonment authorities, they act on it and a mutation is transferred or mutation is done. So, but is there any Supreme Court law? You are saying that there is a Supreme Court decision which says that probate is compulsory in all wills?
Sir, as far as Supreme Court goes, the answer is yes.
Which case is that, sir?
sir, I won't be able to tell you as of now. And the second thing is, I need some time to tell you, and I'll just tell you. And the second thing is, sir, as far as your comments are that Maharashtra, that is Bombay, Chennai, and Kolkata, where will registration, this thing, probate is necessary. In other jurisdictions also, the probate is necessary if insisted upon, sir.
If insisted upon, but if
most of the time they insist. Most of the time they insist.
But sir, if they have done the mutation without the probate, then it's valid.
Sir, in any case, let us understand one thing: mutation is not the ownership. Mutation is mere.
Mutation or transfer, whatever is done,
it's always good to have. It's always good to have the will probated, because that is a kind of title which comes to you.
No, but 4%, as you say, if you have to pay stamp duty, is almost ad valorem, like a conveyance. 5% to 7% is a normal conveyance. Who will pay probate? Then what's the purpose of will? We can transfer it before execution of will also.
Yes, that is usually done.
So So just I wanted highlights on this only. If you can let me know whether probate is legally required to be done in all cases of execution of will where immovable property is involved.
Can you do me a favor? Can you share your? I'll just note down, and I'll get back to you with the case, Mr. I will send you the case, sir. I will send you the case.
Thank you, sir. Just a small note on this probate also.
Yes, sir. It's a ready-made note available with me. The only thing is that at the moment I am not able to recall it, sir.
No, sir. Fine, sir. Thank you so much. Your things was recapitulated anything, and we are required to know about will.
I'll send, sir. I'll send. It's a ready-made note.
It was about that registration of will after the death of the testator. So even if any timelines are there in some procedure.
There are no timelines, sir. There are no timelines.
Okay. Even after 20 years, we can do it. There's no problem.
Sir, there has to be a reasonability. But still it is technically possible, sir.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question, Dalmia sir.
Mr. Dalmia?
Yes, sir, Vibhorji.
Sir, I have a small question. When you say that will should be registered with the registrar, then it becomes a public document. Then how is there any procedure to make it a some private document or some secrecy?
Hold on. Till the death of the person, it is not a public document. It is kept in a secret manner, in a closed manner, and it is not available to the public for inspection. Only after death, a person, an interested party, can go and claim a copy of the same. Before that, there is not even an inspection. Not even an inspection is allowed.
And after death, any interested parties are allowed, or non-interested also?
Any interested party can go and claim.
Not any third party cannot check.
Sir, ultimately, even a third party can say that I am interested and get a copy.
Okay, correct.
Yes, madam, you were saying something. Hello.
Mr. Dalmia, my question, I'm Girija Krishnan Verma here.
Yes, ma'am.
What if the executor does not act upon the will? Is he obligated to do something, or is there any action against him?
And ma'am, nobody can be obligated to do anything. It will depend upon the executor. If the executor is not willing to act, or the executor refuses to act, then you have to go for the letter of administration before the court, and on that basis, the court will appoint someone else to execute the provisions on it.
So, under a letter of administration, you don't need to pay the fee.
Yes, you are.
Fee that you need to pay under a probate.
You are liable to pay the same fee.
Same fees. All right. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. It was a very insightful discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Is there any other question? And let me tell you here, I have got a lot of other questions, but I don't think that keeping in view the time constraints and all other things and the interest of the attendees here, I may try to answer on one-to-one basis. My email ID is with most of you. It is available. So, Rohitji, I think with that we can close.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I am not able to answer all the questions. There are lots of more questions, and please excuse me, and I am sorry for not answering all the questions. Thank you for attending this particular meeting, and it has been a pleasure to answer your queries, and it is my honor to join with you and speak to you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.